Some people may join us, but well, good afternoon, evening. Good evening to everyone, and welcome to this meeting. This is the meeting of the Oregon Secretary of State Translation Advisory Council. It's great to have you all here today and to start the year together. So I just want to ask everyone to put their name on the chat, say hello, and also remind you to please mute your microphone if you're not participating or speaking so that we can hear the presenters better. Melissa, if you see anybody attending over the phone so far.
So far, not. We're good.
Okay, great. Help me keep an eye on that. And if you see anybody in the chat, maybe we'll make sure that we acknowledge that they are with us. Thank you again for being here. And I can see everybody's greetings in the chat. It's great to have you. Just as a reminder, this meeting is being recorded for the public record. We won't have any public participation today, but we may have community members join the meeting to listen in. So I want to also welcome them. And even though they cannot participate today, we want them to feel free to email the advisory council email if they have any questions or comments. I will share that email address with you in the chat. Also, just before we start, Melissa, if you can also help me confirm that we have a quorum. We're going to be voting today to approve the minutes, and so we'll need a quorum. And just want to make sure that just know if we have that.
Yes, just a moment. Let me confirm that in a second, but feel free to continue, and I'm confirming that.
Thank you. Great. Let's see. We have a full meeting tonight. We have a really great agenda. It's packed with, I think, really relevant and good information, and also with very special guests tonight. So I'm looking forward to the meeting. And I just want to invite you to take a look at the slide on the screen and the agenda for today. We are going to have greetings from the new leadership at the Secretary of the State's office. Then we'll take a vote to approve the minutes of our last meeting in August. We get to meet the new members of the council. We've had people join us since August of last year when we had the last meeting, so we'll meet them today. We will also hear from the Secretary of State staff a report about the activities of the council and just what's going on in the election division. We have another guest, or a couple of guests from the county voters education and outreach program. They have a presentation about their work, and we'll have the opportunity to discuss the presentation in smaller groups. And I think that's the bulk of the agenda. Then we will close with some announcements, and we'll just take a few minutes to fill out an evaluation before we go. Melissa, and I think she will help us keep an eye on the chat. If you have any questions during the meeting, feel free to raise the hand using the feature in the computer. Use the chat or unmute yourself. We'll try to monitor the chat to make sure that we capture that.
And Magda, we do have a quorum.
Nice. We have a quorum. Okay, great. Yep. Thank you. So I think with that, if we move on and get started, we want to start with meeting the Deputy Secretary of State, Michael Kaplan, who is here with us tonight. Michael just transitioned from the State Treasury, where he was Deputy Treasurer, to now the Secretary of the State in the role of Deputy Secretary of State. And I think that just happened a very few days ago. Michael has worked different roles in the state of Oregon. He has worked at the Department of Energy during the administrations of the Governor Kitzhaber and Kulongoski. He also worked with Oregon Housing and Community Services and did a budget cycle in the Chief Financial Office of the state. So his career spans, this is my notes, from working with agencies of less than one full-time employee to working bottom line accountability for hundreds of billions of dollars in our state. And at his new role with the Secretary of State, he will help create a culture of accountability, respect, and excellence. The Secretary of State in Oregon. So, Michael, we are glad to have you here tonight, and we want to welcome you, and I'll pass it on to you.
Okay, thank you, Magda. I really appreciate the invitation to meet all of you tonight, even if it's virtual. Really can't appreciate enough the time that you make and the volunteering that you do. This is not certainly not easy work and certainly not fast work. So thank you again for the invitation. Most important thing, we are now on day 4 of the Reid administration in the Secretary of State's office. So we have learned how to move around the office and gotten emails fired up, and we all have laptops. So we're very early in our tenure here. We're super excited to be here. It's a huge opportunity. The secretary is really eager to get to work and lend a hand. The performance of state government and the confidence that we are able to give to Oregonians for that work is near and dear to his heart, and it's the primary reason that he decided to run for Secretary of State. So we're all raring to go. So this is a big opportunity for us, and we will not take that opportunity for granted. So rest assured, we're totally committed to the work. One of the things I wanted to talk about very quickly, just so you know, are the Secretary's top priorities as he comes into this seat. First and foremost, what he promised Oregonians, what he campaigned on, is that he wants to take on ensuring that we rebuild trust and credibility with the public. I think right now it's fairly obvious that faith in institutions, trust in institutions is a bit on the decline for many, many reasons. The Secretary believes every public servant has an opportunity to help push back against that trend. And his tenure as Secretary of State will be defined by what we can do not only to restore public faith and trust in the Secretary of State's office specifically, but also more broadly in Oregon state government. Everything we do should be complementary, should build momentum, and should be a credit to every working person in Oregon who does this work and serves the public. Specifically on elections, we have some fairly significant IT projects related to campaign finance reform, related to voter registration. Those projects are always ones that are incredibly risky, that garner a lot of attention, a lot of scrutiny, and state government doesn't frequently do them very well. So our huge priority for us is making sure that we do everything we can to keep those projects on rails and that they will be delivered effectively and in a way that builds public trust and accountability. Additionally, the Secretary has also made very clear that he wants to ensure that our elections division is completely above reproach and any skepticism. So one of the things that he campaigned on and promised Oregonians is that he would find a leader of that division who had a deep experience in elections work, who could deliver that work in a nonpartisan function. So we're very excited to announce that Dina Dawson, who checks every box, who has worked in the elections field in multiple states, and who was most recently a county clerk in Lane County, is going to be joining our team. One of the things that the Secretary of State's office has experienced in recent years is a lot of leadership turnover. They've had some unfortunate tragedy even. They've had a few, they had a secretary leave quite suddenly. They had another secretary appointed to become governor. So there's been a lot of turnover, which has created instability at the very top and has not necessarily seen administrations change over on a regular cadence. So the Secretary Reid has had over a year essentially to figure out exactly who he wants to be on this team, the kinds of people and staff he wants to hire. And so we've had a fairly significant turnover in terms of the people doing communications work. Our elections director is new. Our auditor is going to be new. We're going to have a new business service administrator. So there's a lot of acute change, but it is all in the interest of getting people who are firmly committed to delivering on our mission over his entire administration. So very, very excited about Dina, very excited about every hire that we've made. We think that we are building a foundation here, which will allow us to really hit the ground running. Our new elections director starts on, I think, the 21st, which is a Tuesday. And we are going to put her to work right away. We've got a long to-do list for her as she comes on board, but you'll see fairly significant action out of us shortly thereafter. And quite frankly, the most important thing I'm here to do today is to, on the Secretary's behalf, thank all of you. He really values the role of people who volunteer their time and energy in this capacity, but also any capacity, who are helping advance the state, our work, everything that we do to make Oregon the special place that it is attributable to people like you. So he wanted to say that he's looking forward to a long and fruitful partnership, and he is really excited about the contribution that you all make. We know that you had a big 2024. We know that you have a huge workload in 2025. Thank you in advance for the next 356 days, I think, if my math is right, of some significant labor. Not that we have a clock ticking down at all, or we're thinking on those terms, although we may be. Just wanted to say thank you for all of that. And that's really it. I don't want to bore you. The last thing anyone wants to do is listen to me, but I told the chair and the vice chair that I would be exceedingly fast. But with any time left over, I'd be more than happy to answer questions. Although, to be perfectly frank, again, this is day 4 for me, so there's a lot that I may not know. But I will endeavor. If I don't know it today, I will endeavor to get you an answer and make sure I pass it along through staff, or you'll hear the answer from me at some point in the future. So again, thank you so much, and on behalf of the Secretary, really appreciate the invitation to be here tonight and the partnership that you all offer and the great work that you do for Oregon. So thank you very much. It's really a pleasure to be here and to meet you all.
Thank you. Yeah, thank you for being here too. I see one hand raised. Catalina.
Hi. Yeah, it's a pleasure to have you here and give us a kickoff for the year. I was curious to see if the Secretary has any estimates on how much of the voting increased, with participation of these different language cultures that are in the state.
This is one of those questions. Raw numbers and statistics are not at my fingertips right now. So I will have to return that to you at some later point. I don't know offhand.
No problem. Thank you.
Sure.
And welcome.
Thank you very much.
All right. Well, I don't see any other hands up. I'm sure I speak for everyone when we say we appreciate you being here, the time to meet us. We hope to have a great partnership in the years to come. And yeah, I'm sure we'll have questions later when you're, we're all more into the work. But thank you again for being here tonight. We are here all, again, I'm sorry, I speak for everybody. I think we're all really committed and excited to be able to support Oregon in just making voting accessible to those of us who speak a language other than English. So,
my pleasure, and I promise to have answers when I have more utility here in a few months and weeks. So thank you very much again. I really appreciate it.
Great. Well, let's continue. I want to quickly say hello to those that just joined us or that joined a little after we kind of kicked off the meeting. So welcome everyone. If you haven't put your name in the chat to let us know that you're here, please do that. The meeting is being recorded, and we confirmed that we have quorum today, which is great because our next item in the agenda is to vote on the minutes. So I hope that everyone had the opportunity to review the minutes or to take a look at the minutes. our partners from the Secretary of Staff shared them with us in the invitation for the meeting tonight. Those are the notes of the meeting we had in August in person. To vote, I want to, just remind everybody, we're going to do a voice vote. So when we're going to vote, you can unmute yourself and vote yes or no. But before we vote, I want to ask the council if there is any corrections that are needed for the minutes. And if there are, you can unmute yourself or type in the chat. Okay, I'll ask again, just in case, are there any corrections that are needed for the minutes? So if there are none, then we can move to vote to approve them. I will need a motion to vote to approve the minutes. Can anyone provide a motion?
I move to approve the minutes from David Jones.
Thank you. That motion is accepted. And can we get a second motion?
I second to approve the minutes. Fleur Prade.
Thank you, Fleur. Great. So let's vote again. Please unmute yourself. And maybe I'm going to count to 3 so we can do it about at the same time. And Melissa's going to help. Well, we'll try the votes verbally. So please unmute yourself and say yes if you approve and no if you disapprove.
Yes.
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 Yes. Yes.
Yes.
Yes.
Yes.
Yes. Awesome. Well, thank you, everyone. I think we can approve the minutes. So those are approved. Thank you for your participation. And I think
Yes,
we can
the
go to
minutes
the
are
next
approved.
slide. Okay, minutes are approved. Thank you, Lisa. Okay, so next, we want to have a few minutes to get to know the new members of the council. Since August of last year, we have had 8 new members joining us. So we want to welcome them and meet them today. The names of the new members are in the slide in your screens, and maybe we can use that order. So I want to ask the new members if they can unmute themselves and say hello, tell us your name, tell us one of the reasons why they decided to join the council, and to feel free to say hello or goodbye in your language that you speak. So I'm going to call on the first person, Hane, and then we can go from there. I wonder
I haven't
if
seen Hanai's name.
Hane,
Maybe
okay,
we'll
we haven't.
move to Lee.
Okay, perfect.
Hi, good evening, everyone. My name is Li Gui, and I speak Mandarin, and I am fluent in reading and writing simplified and traditional Chinese. So one of the reasons I joined our council is I'm very grateful for the opportunity to join our TSC to help with votes by providing a more accurate and easy understanding voter terminology to build public trust and accountability, like Michael said. And I'm also very excited for the platform to learn from everyone and learn more about the vote. Thank you very much.
Yeah. Thank you, Lee. It's great to have you. May.
don't see May's name in the
Do we
people.
Yeah, do we have May? If you are able to say hello.
I'm not sure she's here. Should we move to
Okay,
Terry?
yep, let's continue.
My turn. Good evening, everyone. Excited to join my very first TAG meeting. In my language, you greet somebody by saying namaste, as in many South Asian communities. And one reason I joined is really to see if there's voter turnout is usually low in my community, and a part of that has to do a lot with language accessibility. So trying to be involved and see, how I could contribute and how I could bring back to the community. So yeah, open to new experience. Thank you.
Thank you. It's great to meet you. To have you here. Is the next person here? Suad?
Suad is in the chat, so I think she's here. Can you unmute
Hi.
Suad?
Yes, hi. Good evening, everybody. So nice to hear everyone's reason.
Suad, what's the language you will be helping with?
May have lost
Okay,
her.
we may have problems. Yeah. Maybe we can come back to Suad if that's okay.
Did I get disconnected?
Yes, but I think you're back.
Hi, sorry. I'm okay. Sorry, bad network. I'm Suad Mohammed. I'm presenting my language so far. The reason why I joined is and I can contribute in translation in any way that would provide some kind of fulfillment for me. I'm also a professional court interpreter for the state of Oregon, so I'm also using this as an opportunity to advance my career in that area. And the way to say hi in my language is salam.
Awesome. And Suad, I think because the communication is on and off, I think we missed your language. So if you can repeat it or put it in the chat, but we're really glad that you're
Yes,
here
the Somali
tonight.
language.
Somali. Okay, great. Great. Thank you so much for being here. And let's continue with Natasha.
I have not seen Natalia's name in the list. I would move on.
All right. Rebecca.
Hello again.
Hello.
My name is Rebecca. I am Khmer interpreter. I am in the field of the medical interpreter, and the reason that I joined this team is because I haven't seen a lot of incorrect word in Khmer language out there in the hospital and also other document. And most of all, thanks to Kelly, found me and tracked me down, and I agreed to work with the team. Thank you so much. And this is how we greet in our language.
Great. Thank you. Thank you. That's I share the reason with you too. So thanks for being here. And then our last but not least, Nasirullah.
Hi everyone, good evening. My name is Nasirullah Safi and I also go by John. We also say Salam Mandanabashi in Farsi. And there's so many reasons I wanted to join this incredible group, but one of the biggest reasons that I really wanted to be part of this journey is to bring our community back together and help them how to understand the election process and also some other terminology that they've been struggling with. And so happy to be here. And I forgot to say happy 2025.
Thank you. Yes, it's a new year. Great. Did we miss anybody that is here? See, one person, yes. Yeah, I see a hand up.
Chi, that would be Chi. Do you have a question, Chi?
Sorry, I tried to, okay, put it on my hands. So glad to be here, and my name is Chi Richmond, and I recently work at Clackamas County Elections. The reason I joined the team is because, first of all, I'm new hire at the elections office, and then my clerk encouraged me to join the team and to do the part of my job. Yeah, I agree with her. It's my pleasure to work with everybody, and I'm seeing a lot of quality translation. And I just feel like it's my pleasure to do part of my job to improve the quality of the translation. And oh, by the way, my first language is Mandarin, and tradition and simplified. So glad to be here, and I try my best to do my part of the job. Since I work at the election office, and there's a lot of great opportunity to approve the translation. And thanks, Kelly, to always to take my input. I really appreciate it. Thank you so much. So glad to be here, and Happy New Year.
Thank you. This is it's really great to meet everybody and to hear all the great, meaningful reasons that you have for being here. I think as larger council, I think we all share a lot of those reasons. And so it's glad to be in a group that has a lot of those shared interests and goals. So welcome to all the new members, and it's great to have you. All right, so I think we can now pass it on to Kelly. She is going to, and Melissa next, but Kelly is gonna open and just give us a report of what has been happening in the council work, and some related to the Secretary of State divisions, elections divisions. So Kelly, I will pass it on to you now.
Yes, it was great to hear from everyone, and we're just excited about the new members and the new energy for this council. So our report from the Secretary of State Elections Office will be mostly about legislative issues, bills that have passed and may be changing. And then Melissa, our program analyst, will be walking through the engagement survey results that you all did in November. The 2025-2027 biennium, so the legislature process and budgets go over 2-year biennium cycles. It begins this month for the next 2 years, 2-year cycle. And the session is 6 months long. It runs through June 2025. And from the Secretary's office, we've submitted a policy option package for funding to commit and support the growing program. The slide here shows what we expected when they wrote the bill and which became the law, and the actual kind of numbers of activities that you're doing. So I just want to recognize all of you. You know, we thought maybe there'd be 5 languages and there would be, about 150 ballot measures a year. You can see that the increase in all of these things were well over 50%. So we just really need to have the support for that. The policy option package will promote permanent funding for my position, as well as reclassification of Melissa's position to recognize the complexity of this work. I know when I go out and meet people, like at a party or church or something, they ask me if I speak 19 languages when I tell them what I do, but no, I don't. I depend on all of you, and 19 is a lot, so we're really excited. The last line there is about the candidates and argument statements. If you worked in the November election, you might remember we have in the law, it allows statewide candidates, and it allows those filing measures, arguments for and against statewide measures, to submit their own translations. And you've seen what some of those look like. And so we've sent those out to you as well. You'll see that it increased over 400% between the 2022 election and the 2024 election. So the program is just really growing. Right, and then all year long, we've been talking about Senate Bill 1533. That passed in the 2024 short session. So it passed by the end of March last year. And it changed the language formula for inclusion of translated languages in the voters' pamphlet. So there will be 19 languages this year, as I mentioned. And it means that in a large election like the upcoming May election or general elections, usually the May and November, we'll be doing over 115 unique pamphlets, up 30%. So it also means that we've had wonderful council members join us, and we've also kind of padded some of the state top 5 languages so that we have more reviewers of Chinese, Russian, Spanish. We also added Ukrainian and Arabic this year, so there were 2 of those. The new languages are traditional Chinese, Farsi, Yumien, Khmer, I need to learn how to say that, Rebecca, Nepali, and Somali. It also means that Arabic, Japanese, and Tagalog were expanded in some of the larger counties. So we'll see an increase in those translations as well. It's based on population and by the county. And then when a language is on a county list, it becomes part of the state language. So that's how we come up with 19. Finally, we also submitted a request to revise, well, we haven't submitted it yet. Session hasn't started, but we are submitting a technical fix to an election omnibus bill, which would revise our ability to pay stipends to public employees. So in the last year, legal counsel in the Attorney General's office said that the law doesn't allow us to pay those who work in public service, community colleges, state government, local governments, and so on. So we're hoping that we'll be able to give you a small token of thanks and appreciation for those who are doing the work but have not received the annual stipend. Hope that goes through. Again, that starts later this month. We'll know by the end of June how those 3 issues. Typically, when you introduce a bill with a sponsor, there's a time when they have testimony and they hear the bills and can hear questions from the public. So we'll let you know when those are. We'll send out an email and a link, and you can let the legislature know if you'd like to support some of those bill changes that will be hopefully coming through. Okay, Melissa, would you like to do the engagement survey?
Absolutely. Hi, everybody. I think it was around December, maybe late November, we sent out an engagement survey, and 20 of you participated out of 36. So that's around 60, 70%, which is great. We broke the survey out. We asked you to identify if you were a new member. These were the results of new members. And then we also had a big part of the survey were responses from everyone, just not just new members. So from new members of this year, we wanted to get some insights on how you felt about your onboarding process and the resources provided to you. Our insights from your responses was that it was useful. It was very helpful in terms of the training and orientation resources provided to you. Just to refresh your memory, the recordings, the onboard meetings alike that we provided to you. New member confidence in providing translation reviews. The reviews were confident and very confident, which is wonderful to hear. We, of course, want you to feel connected and resourced in this opportunity. And then new member resource ideas that really connected with those that joined were mentorship, group discussions, samples of other reviewers' work of the same language, which was also something that really was useful to those at our August meeting So that makes sense. Assistance with Workday, a translated glossary of government management and financial terms, and use in Unicode font. So those are great ideas that we're taking in terms of additional resources to consider going forward. So in terms of everybody that responded, some questions highlighted is your community aware of translated voter pamphlets on the Secretary of State pages? 8 of you, which is 42% of those 20 that responded, said yes, but a majority of you all were not sure, said no, or other. So that could be something that we discuss at a further point in terms of the awareness, the community at large. You know, do our communities know the amount of material assigned to you to review within election times? Is it a good amount? Is it reasonable? 89% of you said it's reasonable, not applicable other, but nobody said it's not reasonable. So that's really wonderful to hear from you all. Personal, I know Kelly really works hard at, managing those workloads appropriately. And then also personal benefits of participation on the council. It was great to see the personal benefits that you all feel that you get from being a part of the council, serving my language being the highest, connection to peers, and then learning about elections being the top 3, with linguistic knowledge and professional network being not too far behind as well. And then we also appreciated all of your notes and additional feedback as well in terms of, the website, and we're passing all of that information to our website team as well. Yeah.
I was just gonna say that's great information from both of you, and I was gonna say the same. If there's any questions, comments, I think we have a few minutes for that.
Did you have any? Is there more some more slides, Melissa?
No, those were the top 2.
Okay.
Any questions or anything that you want to highlight from those survey results? Okay, I think we can move on, Magda.
Awesome, thank you. I was just gonna add that this survey is a yearly survey, so it's done every year. November was the last time, is the one you're reporting on, so we'll have another opportunity to touch base, provide feedback at the end of this year. So is that. And also want to just kind of thank Kelly and Melissa for all the work and tracking and managing all these pieces that they presented on. It's not a huge team, but they have a huge workload, and so we appreciate that. And I just want to also highlight for this next legislative session, we'll be notified when there's opportunity to provide testimony, hopefully in support for the asks of the Secretary of State for the budget, and that this is key to continue, doing this work from the Secretary of State office. So just want to invite you to keep your eyes open for when it's time to hopefully provide that support. Okay, any questions, comments from anyone? Great, so I think we can take a break. We're a few minutes early, but we have a plan for a 10-minute break, so it's 6:44. Maybe we can take 11 minutes and come back at, what that be, like 6:55, 5 minutes before 7.
6:55.
Does that sound right? Can someone help me with the math?
Yep.
5 minutes before 7. So let's take a break, stretch your legs, and we'll see you shortly.
No, I didn't grab the other. Pero.
We're just about ready to start again. Just confirming that Scotty and Yvonne are on. Did you get on? Looks like it.
Maybe if you are back, if you can give a thumbs up so we know when people are arriving. So if you're back from your break, give us a thumbs up. Thank you. Good. Awesome. I hope you had a good short break. Welcome back, everyone. We have, I think, a really cool second part of the meeting now. So I'm gonna just get started. We have with us today the Voter Education and Outreach Program of Multnomah County. We were motivated to learn about their current efforts and their work. They promote voters' participation and education in Multnomah County. But we were particularly interested in this topic after we heard a story from Catalina. So I just wanted to give, we wanted to give Catalina a few minutes to tell us about her experience during these last elections and so that we can connect it with our presentation today. So Catalina, you wanna share your experience?
Sure, thank you. And hi, everybody. So I don't know if, well, for those who were present at the last in-person meeting in August, I don't know if you remember that table with all the swag that we got for our outreach support. That got me inspired. I wanted to bring some of those materials to Central Oregon and look for some venue or an event that was having tables registering people for the Latino vote. And there's a huge festival here in Central Oregon in September. Usually is the Latino Fest, and 1,500 people attend. And like my mind is like blowing up. I'm thinking all these kids that are turning 18 and can vote now, and you know I have big dreams. So we started as the Latino Fest committee, asking around if there were someone who could host a table, and I could provide all this swag to them and maybe man the table too. But there were emails like that were being exchanged between a group that they were planning on coming to Central Oregon, and the days went by and we didn't hear back. And I'm trying to find out who's going to be here. And the final response that I got from them through the organization that organizes the big event was that they decided not to come because they were too busy with other events and they didn't have anyone who spoke Spanish. And even when I offered to be that one person to be there for the event and take turns with other people, their answer was no. Like they couldn't do it. So I feel like there I was all excited about it and I couldn't find anyone. And the one thing that was the barrier was my own language. So I guess I shared the story with the team, and then this is why we have the Multnomah Voter and Education Outreach team here to speak to us tonight. So welcome, bienvenidos.
Yeah, thank you, Catalina. Yeah, we have Scotty Sherrington and Ivan Garcia from the county. So I will pass it on to them to share about the program. We'll have time to connect the presentation, Catalina's experience and your thoughts on these. As a council, we don't do outreach, but we members can participate in outreach. There's a process we have in the past supported the Secretary of State with outreach and campaigns for voting awareness, I guess. So we can talk a little bit more about that. And Scotty and Ivan, I think you are next. And thank you, Catalina, for sharing.
Thank you.
I see you, Ivan.
Hi everyone, I'm here and I'm waiting for Scotty to take the lead in the presentation. I don't know if he can hear us or
Can you hear me now?
or if no, we can hear you, Scotty.
Okay, good. Sorry, my settings
Oh, there.
messed up on my side. So I think my settings are good now, so I should be coming through.
It sounds great.
Okay, thanks everyone. It's hard when Yvonne and I were talking about this earlier. We're on so many different platforms throughout the day that sometimes the settings get messed up between things. So thank you for having us. We were very excited about the invitation to come and connect with you all today and talk a little bit about who we are and what we do. So that we'd start off with a little introduction. So Yvonne and I can let you know about what our background is and what we work on. So again, my name is Scotty Sherrington. I use them, they and them as my pronouns in the workplace. My title at Multnomah County is a program specialist senior, and I lead our voter education and outreach program. I've been with Multnomah County, it'll be 18 years this summer. I've been in this position for almost 3. I come from a background of racial equity work. Before I came to the elections office, I worked in our department of our Office of Diversity and Equity, working on racial equity, which also included some language access work as well. Main reason why I wanted to come to this program was that this is a program that has been long established at Multnomah County. We've had funding since 2015, but it's been a position that hasn't always been filled. So it was an opportunity to come and apply what I knew about voting in Multnomah County and bring my background in training and education to this position. So Yvonne, would you like to introduce yourself and give a little bit about your background?
Yes, hi everyone, my name is Ivan Garcia. I'm the Voter Education Outreach Program Tech. I've been with the Elections Division for the past 3 months, recently hired. Didn't know anything about elections. I started first as an on-call temporary worker for the Elections Division for the primary elections. And when that primary elections were done, I got the opportunity to start working with Scotty, and I love the work that Scotty is doing, especially doing the outreach events, and that got me excited. And eventually, I was able to take the full-time position, and I'm very glad. So far, this experience has been great. My professional background is in communications. I've been working mostly in TV, but I'm excited to be here and share what we are doing with Scotty, and I feel like you learn a lot from us. Thank you.
Thanks, Yvonne. Could you go to the next slide, please? Thank you. So, we have a short presentation for you to kind of give you some background on what we do, how we do it, some of the tools that we've utilized and the partnerships that we have. But we really hope that this can be a conversation. So please, if you have any questions, raise your hand, and we'd love to answer those questions as we go through. And of course, at the end, we'll have some time as you're reflecting on what we speak about. So a little bit more about the background of what we do. As I mentioned, this program has been established since 2015. 2015. It started with, and then when I say program, I mean the county funded a full-time position for voter education and outreach out of the elections division. And I believe it is my understanding that we are the only county within Oregon that does have a full-time voter education and outreach program and personnel. We were able to add a second position to the program with some ongoing funds for the last couple fiscal years. So that is why we now have a second position. And when we added that second position, we made sure to make it a bilingual position, knowing that specifically in Multnomah County, we have been able to correlate language access with voter participation. So we definitely see a strong correlation there, and wanted to make sure that we were addressing that in how we do the hiring for this position. So when this program was first started, we were given kind of one line of directive from our county commissioners, was that this program would lead the efforts to address disparities in voter participation within Multnomah County. So that was the very basic directive that we were given by our county commissioners. So we provide outreach and educational opportunities, again, focusing on communities that have historically not participated in the voting process. So next slide, please. So how do we do this? Well, the first thing we start with is analyzing our voter participation data to identify which communities are not voting within Multnomah County. You know, as we all know, in a vote by mail state such as Oregon, and with recent changes to automatic voter registration, such as the DMV law, we have a high number of registered voters in Multnomah County. As of the general election, we had almost 580,000 registered voters. However, across Multnomah County, the return of ballots from all of those registered voters, we see a lot of disparities. It's not equal across Multnomah County, right? We use a racial equity lens to identify the communities that we need to provide culturally specific outreach and education for. As I think most of you are aware, Multnomah County is a very diverse county. As an urban area, we have a great deal of racial diversity and also a great deal of language diversity here in Multnomah County. So how we do that, knowing that, you know, it's one or two people that really get to do this work, we find that it's essential to partner with community organizations, other Multnomah County programs, and we also do some direct voter outreach at events such as what you have all been speaking about so far. Any questions about that at this point before we move forward? Okay. We're really lucky in that, you know, we are one department in a very large county. Multnomah County itself has 11 different departments with over 5,000 employees that include public health, libraries, the sheriff's office. So those are also, you know, those are our colleagues, and it's really turned out to be a great partnership for us, particularly the libraries, right? A lot of our voters are returning their ballots through the libraries, and they go into the libraries for information and to ask questions. And so every election, we make sure that our library staff is aware of what's happening on that election and that they can answer basic questions for folks. And also, any voter in Multnomah County can go into a library and get a voter registration card. So next slide, please. Thank you. So I talked a little bit about that we look at our data, right? And how do we do that? So a few years ago, we developed our main data analysis tool that we use in our program called the Vote Map. We are looking at data that shows lower voter turnout. So really where the ballots are going and how many are being returned from each precinct. And then we overlay that data with data from the U.S. Census Bureau's American Community Survey. So that, you know, we can very easily, just from our voting data, find out which precincts in Multnomah County are showing lower voter participation. But we wanted to add that extra layer to have a better understanding of who those communities were, so that our efforts towards those communities were targeted and culturally specific to their characteristics. And we definitely are seeing a lot of correlations between those data and voter participation data. So if you could go to the next slide, please, we will show you a picture from that map. So we are currently obviously updating the map with 2024 primary and general election data. So this is still back from 2022. But this map shows all of Multnomah County and the precincts. The darker the blue shows the higher level of voter participation, whereas the lighter colors are lower participation. And some of these areas have really great disparities. So the darkest blue is over 76% participation in those precincts, whereas the light yellow is less than 50%. So we're talking 20, 30, sometimes 40% differences in voter participation between precincts. For those of you that are familiar with Multnomah County geography, the city of Portland itself sits more in the central area of Multnomah County. So some of those darker areas, that's more the central area in the city of Portland. And as you get out east into where the yellow is, that is East Portland and Gresham, Wood Village, Troutdale. And we also, I didn't give images here of all of the census data, but I think you can start to make some assumptions about the demographics of those communities. One in particular to point out is our Spanish speakers. Our majority of our Spanish speakers in Multnomah County live in eastern Portland and in Gresham. And you can see that there is much lower rates of participation in those jurisdictions in that area of Multnomah County. So we see that and we recognize that who we need to connect there is with Spanish speakers. And one thing as your committee member said just recently, right, is if we're going to be going to events out in East Multnomah County, we always make sure that we have a Spanish speaker in attendance, right? Because we are assuming that the majority of voters that we need to talk to would be more comfortable speaking to a Spanish speaker, or we want to ensure that that is part of our services that we apply there. So I want to stop there and see if there's any questions about the vote map or any of the other findings that we've recognized with that map.
Someone has
Question from John.
Oh.
Hi, thank you so much for this information. It's very useful. Actually, I have two questions. One, I was started, I'm sure there are tons of reasons for the low participations of the voters. What is the biggest reasons for those communities or for the lower participations in elections? And that's my first question. And if you want me to, I can ask you the second now, or I can wait on the second one.
Yeah, let me go ahead and kind of address that one. So right now, this data just gives us some ideas about correlations. We see higher levels of poverty, lower levels of education, higher percentages of households that have English as a second language in all of these areas. But really our work is then to get out and speak to these voters, right, and actually talk to them and find out what is the reason why they are not participating in the election. Oftentimes we find it's because they're not aware of what is on the ballot or what the positions on the ballot are. Sometimes what we're seeing is they'll hear a lot of information about things that are happening at the federal level, but not at the local or the state level. So they're not as confident in voting on things that are down the ballot, as we say. So we're still trying to learn those, but we are also finding that it's particularly this last election, we implemented ranked choice voting in Portland. That district out there where it has lower voter participation is District 1 for Portland. And as we were speaking to those voters, it was also just a lack of representation. They did not feel like the city was really listening to them. There has not been an elected official from that area of town. This election changed things in that they had to vote for 3 representatives for the city of Portland from their area. But that was the first time that folks really felt like they could be voting for someone that actually lived in their neighborhood. So there's, I think, various reasons why, but that's exactly what we're trying to find out more about.
Oh, thank you. We'll jump into my second question. You mentioned that we do have diverse communities in those areas. my second question is, how do you communicate with them? Are you, or does your office use interpretation services to reach out to them? As you mentioned, they're very diverse communities, and I'm sure they speak different languages there, including Farsi.
Yes, absolutely. So there's a couple of different ways. We're fortunate enough to have some staff that speak languages that are spoken in those areas. In addition to Yvonne, who speaks Spanish as part of the VEO program. I believe you all know Patty Vasquez Pacheco, who also works in the elections office. Patty is our Spanish language specialist, and so she spends some of her time with the VEO program, as well does Elam, who is our Vietnamese language specialist. So when we're out in those communities, like specifically, I'll talk about Wood Village, which is a small jurisdiction in East Multnomah County that is 43% Hispanic heritage. We are trying to build partnerships with community organizations that already support those communities, and do outreach events with them. We go to a lot of those community meetings. So whenever we can, we try to match up staff that speaks that language with those communities. But in addition to that, we do translate our written materials into 6+ languages, and we have a contract with ERCO, which provides translation services here in Multnomah County. So if we needed to go and do, say, a workshop or a presentation for a community that does not speak English, we do have the opportunity to have a translator available for them.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Catalina, I think you're next. And then there's a question from Suad in the chat. I gave a shot at it, but Yvonne can.
I was gonna read her question. Suad's question is this for all elections or local?
Yes, all elections.
That was why I had my hand raised. So.
And Yvonne, I think I see you with your hand raised. Did you have something to add?
Yeah, I'm just gonna say that some of what we have found also that lower participation in Eastern Portland or Eastern part of the county is that some of these people that are immigrants, they don't trust the system, and we are physically there to answer their questions. That has happened sometimes to me, that they just tell me their stories of what happened in their home countries, and what we do is, educate them and see that here is the different, but that's some of the findings also, that they don't trust the system. That's why we are there to answer their questions or concerns.
Yeah, thank you, Yvonne, for that. If there's no more questions about the vote map, we'll go on to the next slide, please. So what does the actual work look like, right? Like what's the product or what it is that we do on our day-to-day or week-to-week? So we do go to a lot of community-specific events. Some of these are festivals in the summertime. We have a couple of partners that we're really lucky to have here in Multnomah County. One is called the Community Service Network, and they provide resource fairs to different communities. It just so happens that every resource fair that they do usually ends up being in one of those communities that we just saw on the map that shows lower voter participation. So that's a way to build trust with communities that already trust that organization and are attending those resource fairs to start building those relationships. To go kind of like deeper, for those community specific events, usually we only get a minute or two, right, to talk to voters. It's more like tabling. So we always make sure we have giveaways to draw people in. And then we're really just trying to provide one-on-one support and connection with folks so that they know who we are and they know that the next election they can come to our office and they'll see a friendly face. But when we want to go deeper than that and really provide more education, we try to partner with community organizations to do things such as provide tours. We do a lot of tours of our elections office. One kind of interest behind that and what feedback that I've heard is, there's a lot of these communities that, as Yvonne said, does not have trust or doesn't trust elections or government. But then when you invite them into your building and you really show them behind the scenes how we process ballots, how we tabulate ballots, how we store things, how we keep things secure, it can really build a lot of trust and transparency. But also, the groups can provide spaces for presentations and workshops. One particular group that we have a partnership with that we do a workshop with every year is the Latino Network here in Multnomah County. So they have a leadership group that they run once a year. The cohort goes through 6 months of leadership training, but they spend one of those months with us learning about voter participation and how they can promote voting in their community. For that group, the majority of folks that are part of that leadership group are not citizens, or they're working towards their citizenship. But most of them have children who will be able to vote. And so that's one connection, but they've also become great advocates for us, right? They learn from us, find out the information, and then they're going back to their community and talking to their folks about how to register to vote and gain access to their ballot. Another thing that we do outside of our outreach to those specific communities is we've developed some initiatives to target the vulnerable groups that really face additional barriers in a vote by mail system, such as happens in Oregon. So if you could go to the next slide, please, I'll talk about our initiative work. So what we know in a vote by mail system is that it is very, very convenient if you have a residence and you have access to the materials needed to fill out your ballot. So we've identified some communities that may not have all of those tools necessarily to successfully vote their ballot, right? They have additional barriers, I would say, to the process. So our 3 initiatives are based off of our voters in custody. So with Multnomah County, again, I mentioned earlier that we have a lot of partnerships with other Multnomah County agencies. So the Multnomah County Sheriff's Office operates 2 jails within Multnomah County, and our juvenile, we also have a juvenile detention center that our Department of Community Justice operates. Voters in Oregon can still vote, even if they're serving for a misdemeanor. They only lose their right to vote when they are serving under a felony. So most of our voters in county facilities are still eligible to vote. And so we have partnered with our colleagues that work in those facilities to ensure that those voters are able to register and that their ballots and education materials get to them. Our second initiative is for our voters without a residence. As I'm sure you are all aware, we have a very large population of folks experiencing homelessness in Multnomah County that are in various stages of housing stability, whether that's they're on the streets, they're in a shelter, they're in temporary housing to get into permanent housing, may not be thinking about changing their address every single time they make a move, right? Or how they can access their ballot by mail. For folks who aren't aware, if somebody does not have a residence, to register to vote for their residential address on that card, they can just put an intersection or a park or something. So folks without a residence can still register, but they need to have a mailing address and someplace to send their ballot to. So we partner with, again, organizations that are already supporting those voters, a lot of organizations that are doing things such as food pantries or providing other services. And then, of course, we're in direct contact with the shelters that operate in Multnomah County through our Joint Office of Homeless Services. So it allows us to connect directly with voters that are in shelters during each election. And then Yvonne kind of spoke to our last initiative, which is our new voters. And that really focuses on not only young voters, so 18-year-olds and working in schools, but our new citizens, right? We are lucky to have a partnership with the United States Citizenship and Immigration Services Field Office here in Portland. So we do voter registration for them so that we try to be a friendly first face after they get their certificate so they can register to vote immediately and build that trust from the beginning. And we also go to all of the new citizenship classes that are being offered in Multnomah County to do presentations and introduce ourselves before they even become citizens, so that they know where they can come and get assistance to register to vote as soon as they've worked through that process and become citizens. We'll also be working, with schools a lot to make sure that one of the strategies that we've seen great success in is if you educate young people in schools about voting, they tend to go home and talk to their parents and their other relatives, about voting. So schools is also another great way to reach voters. Is there any questions about our initiatives?
I'm just going to say that for the students or young voters, we make it easy for them to get registered to vote by just providing a QR. Sometimes they don't want to really write the information on papers, so they just take their phone and scan their QR, and they do it that way. And also when we go to the USCIS building, we get them right in the spot, and many of them are really excited to just becoming citizens of the United States, and right away they're able to register to vote. So
Thank you. We have a question from Magda.
Yeah, I have a good question. I'm curious about the new voters that are also becoming citizens. Do you have a chance before the ceremonies to know what languages do they speak, or do you keep tracking anyway about their languages?
That's a great question. We don't. We are not really told by USCIS who is going to be in each ceremony. My understanding of the way that they do it is sometimes they don't know who's going to be in each ceremony because of the way that they schedule it. So we have tried to maintain that. For those visits as well, we try to make sure that we have a Spanish speaker there. But we're seeing, a great level of diversity of folks that are coming through and becoming new citizens in Multnomah County. Great. Was there any other questions about our initiatives? See a hand up.
I do wanted to ask if you happen to have like the budget that your department has to run these kind of initiatives in the communities, like over the
Yes.
year.
Yeah, great question. So we don't have a dedicated budget for the voter education and outreach program. It's kind of rolled into our overall general budget. But I can tell you that for events, I usually spend around $20,000 a year. That include, we give away a lot of giveaways. We really are trying to get our brand out there, which is Multnomah Votes, which is, the same as our website. We find that especially when we're going out to events like that, that's one of the ways to really start building that trust is people want to come to your table if you've got things to give away and you have things to share with them. And then with, event fees and such, usually it's about $2,000 a year that we spend on event fees. We're lucky to have some partnerships with, like I said, with Community Services Network. They don't charge us for their events because they have separate funding. And then, really the biggest cost is the staffing. So in addition to Yvonne and I, we also utilize on-call election workers as our outreach assistants. Some of those festivals that we go to in the summer are really large, and we need, 12 people a weekend to staff those. So that's how we are able to staff those larger events as well.
Thank you.
Thank you.
We have a question from Tatiana, and we have about 3 minutes left.
Hello, I had a question about outreach to students. I just dropped off a new student at PSU, and your talk reminded me, should he re-register at his new dorm address? And do you outreach to PSU students? Some of them are coming from other maybe counties of Oregon, but many of them may be out of state, and if they re-register to vote in Oregon. And I had experienced this year actually calling out of the country, voting out of the country from Ukraine, and that was a new experience for me too. But yeah, I'm interested into outreach to students.
Yeah, great question. So we are connected with all of the universities and colleges that are in Multnomah County. Some of them are doing a great work on their own. PSU, for one, has a student engagement office, and we provide them with materials and let them know when the next election is, and they do a really great job of registering students there. So we're trying to take the approach of having liaisons on each of the campuses. Other colleges like Reed College in Southeast Portland, we've been out there to do voter registration drives, but almost every college I found that there is somebody that is working on voter engagement, or we have a liaison at least at each university in Multnomah County. Yeah, great question.
Thank you.
And we just have
we've
that one slide left, Kelly, and then we should be able to wrap it up. So I just want to talk a little bit about our language access policy and what we're currently working on. So currently we support these 6+ translated languages in addition to English. So we're going to be evaluating what new languages we might be able to support this month. As you all know, the state is expanded the number of languages, and Kelly has shared that data with us. So we are currently going through that to see and evaluate what our budget will allow to add new languages. It's our goal to never remove languages, but just add them based off of how demographics are changing in Multnomah County. So our goal with this policy was the goal of to translate our materials, our press releases, our website, and all of our social media campaigns into these languages. So currently we have 4 full-time bilingual staff, but we also utilize on-call election workers as well. One of our goals is to have enough staff to have a council similar to what you all are doing, so that when we have immediate things that needs to be translated, we're not having to utilize our translation service, which usually has a delay of about 7 to 10 days. So right in the middle of an election, when we need to get information out quickly to folks, we want to be able to build up our capacity so that we can be more responsive to all of the languages that are being spoken in Multnomah County. So that is the end of our presentation. Happy to take any questions.
I'm wondering if we can, our plan is we're going to do small breakout rooms and discuss what you've heard in a little smaller group, and Scotty and Yvonne will join, and then we'll have a report out. So if we could move to that, we'll make sure that everyone gets a chance to kind of connect with each other.
Yeah, Tatiana, if you want to save your question, we have, or put it in the chat, we'll have a few minutes for that. And we maybe can also address it in the breakout sessions. So just so you know, we'll take 15 minutes to chat in small groups. While we are together in the small groups, we're going to answer 2 questions and any other questions or comments that you have. But the 2 questions we'll be discussing are maybe on the next slide, if we can move to the next slide. Thank you, and Melissa also put them in the chat. The first question is, what inspired you about this presentation and all the information and the work that Ivan and Scotty are doing in Multnomah County? And then the second question to guide our conversation is, what would you like election officials, I'm going to say maybe in the state, in your county, to know about engaging with your community, with your language community more specifically? So after the 15 minutes, we're going to come back. I'm going to ask each group to prepare maybe one person to share kind of the highlights of their conversation. And I'm going to let Melissa kind of explain the mechanics of the breakout sessions, and Kelly, Catalina, Melissa, and I will be around to figure out logistics, or if anything comes up for you, and then and to address final questions and comments.
Yeah, so I will be breaking you out into 6 groups. There'll be about 4 to 5 people in each breakout room. And you all will have 15 minutes to discuss the 2 questions that are in the chat. I will give you a 5-minute warning, and then we'll give you a 1-minute warning, and then I'll close out the groups and I'll give you a 10-second countdown. And then we'll all convene. And then Magda said, do assign somebody to report out when we come back, and we'll discuss highlights. So.
Well, that's a great start, Catalina. Is that you sharing for your group?
No, I didn't know we were
Okay, good.
back. No.
All right, are we? I think we're all back, right? Ready?
Yes, we are all back.
Okay, good. Well, we don't have a lot of time, but maybe we can really quickly go around and share just a few of the highlights or from our conversations. Catalina, if you want to start with your group, I don't know who will share with us, but we can start with you and then move on to the other groups.
So real quick, because we got a lot of input and feedback, but overall, the comments were, they were inspired, or we were inspired by the outreach that Multnomah County does to get the marginalized communities, like people in prison, people experiencing homelessness, children or non-citizen people. So it's really inspiring to see that they're making efforts to reach those communities that we typically don't think will be ready to vote or can vote. And there is a lot of different suggestions maybe on how to punctually reach out to different groups and cultures. So I'll be sending the notes to the group, but the value there is that each of us represent a different group and culture, and there are different ways to communicate within our own groups.
Thank you to your group. Who would like to go next?
How about the group that Tsering Sherpa was in?
That's us.
Okay. That's us. Okay, so we first got acquainted and then we started talking about it was kind of nice to kind of hear about the community outreach that that they were in, and also kind of interesting to hear about the data about East Portland, and connecting the educational background, like income background, with the voter participation. We also kind of talked about their effort in working with community-based organizations. And I think one of the things that we talked about is really like voting being more of a civic duty, and it's not always fun. It takes a lot of effort. It takes a lot of work. And when you kind of think about trying to make it more accessible and encouraging like not just a higher voter turnout, but making sure that the voters are more informed and engaged. So more on the education part, but also kind of thinking more about how can we make it more fun. Like an anecdote that I gave was between my peers at work, we made it into like a voter guide party where we were like going over all of the different measures and like the different candidates and what they stood for. And I realized just the amount of effort and work it takes even for somebody with an educational background. And then when you think about, right, like when you're trying to engage community members that don't necessarily speak English, there's like this huge gap in being able to participate and be an informed voter when it requires so much work. So that's kind of like we went on a lot of different tangents from there, but I think we all agreed that a like kind of higher voter turnout, but also making sure that there's more effort on voter education. Did I miss anything, you guys?
I think you're great. We had a lot of fun.
Yeah, we were
So
connecting because
speaking-
this was my first time meeting these guys.
Yeah, thank you for sharing, and it was great connecting. Let's just, because we're kind of short on time, but let's move to the next group. I'm not sure who was in the group, but anybody want to? Yeah, hands up.
We only having 2 people in our group, but it was nice. Everybody got a chance to talk, and we are inspired by the outreach, like everybody says, and we also really love the map, the data map, because Tiffany, my coworker, just showed me our map in Clackamas County. It was so funny, and then tonight I saw the monomas. So the other thing was if we wanted to engage with our community, we just wanted to have those kind of deep outreach to the community that have new immigrations. And because those people have a different background, they have a different culture. Sometimes they're very isolated. And even though you handed them to the register to vote those form or something, they still a little bit, have some questions or either some culturally reasons. So we just hope we really can, especially the county I was working, we can build up this outreach team. But right now we're so short of staff. We're really busy doing the elections, but we are trying. And our clerk, Catherine, is really trying to work on that. So yeah, thanks. That's our discussing in our little group. Thanks.
Thank you. Yeah, it seems like there are some themes that we're seeing through the groups. Anyone else from one of the remaining groups? I see a lot going on in the chat too. We are capturing this. We can discuss it today, but we'll definitely capture these. We can come back to these.
So I want to talk about my group. We only have a few minutes to go, so I got to be careful. I got to be quick. We were inspired by the work and effort that they do on a daily basis, especially by the work that they try to build the trust between communities that they don't trust the system. And we were inspired by their work. Just that's what they're trying to do. They're trying to build the trust between different communities, the ones that they lost the trust or don't trust the system. That was something we were inspired by. What we want the election officials to know, we hope that they would apply the same effort and work to other diverse communities, other communities, and make sure that they also understand how important the election is and how important for them to participate in election.
Thank you. Thank you. We have, I believe, 2 additional groups. If there's anything that you want to add.
I can speak for our group. So Yvonne and Mira and I were in a little group, and it was great to hear from Mira about her experiences in Polk County. And one suggestion she had that we really took to heart was that when we're talking about materials, that not every community is as comfortable with written materials, and using other things such as videos or materials that have more infographics or visual elements to them, right, is really important. So thank you very much for that, Mira.
Oh, you're welcome.
Great, thank you. Do we have one last group that would like to add?
I mean, I just want to echo that with the Filipino community as well, that not everyone in the Filipino community is comfortable with written materials, and having other forms of media is really helpful. Something that Natalia mentioned in our group she's representing the Russian community. And regarding question 2, what would they like election officials to know about engaging with their community? I think one takeaway from our discussion was to just avoid generalizations. The Russian community is scared right now about of something similar happening to what happened to the Japanese community in World War II, where American citizens were marginalized and treated like the enemy, even though they had nothing to do with the conflict that was happening. And so it's too easy to make generalizations and to treat an entire people as the bad guy when that's not always the case. And so to recognize people as people and as individuals.
Yeah. Thank you. Yeah, thanks for sharing that. I wish we were so short on time. I think there's just so much value in everything that we've shared, that we've heard today from Scotty and Ivan. So I want to thank them for being here tonight. And thank all of you for your listening and sharing. Yeah, I think we can pick up later if you feel like there's, any of these you think it's important that we think more about or we come back to it. Let us know in the chat. I want to pass it on to Kelly now just for final kind of remarks and to wrap it up. But we will have a survey sent to you just to evaluate this meeting, see how we did, how it went for you. And if there's anything that you questions or comments left from this conversation or anything else in the meeting, make sure to capture them there so that we can receive them and address them. So thank you, and Kelly, I'll pass it on to you next.
Catalina, did you want to?
I wanted to add something about the survey. This group is all about voice and being representation, being heard out. Like, this is the opportunity for us to express our feedback and give direction to our officers and this group and the Secretary of State to continue to support this initiative. So please go ahead and vote. It's quick, it's easy. We made it really simple, but we want to hear from everybody. And thank you very much.
Thank you, Co-Chair Catalina. Next slide, Melissa. There's just a few announcements here. We will send them out also by email after the meeting. Just to remind people, if you haven't finished your training, need to do that. You can connect with us. The election for March, we don't have any counties producing voters pamphlets. We just found or finalized today, but these will be the dates when you will be receiving materials. And as Catalina said, please use the survey. If you could do it tonight, that'd be great. It's in the chat. It takes about 3 minutes. And I think that's it. Magda?
Yeah, just one last reminder to keep an eye on the emails from Secretary of State staff. I think as part of the council, we have some expectations to support the work and to not miss doing reviews more than one time per year. So just like a call to communicate if you have any difficulties in participating or making or doing your reviews. The expectations and kind of the process are outlining the bylaws, which you hopefully have seen and can check. So just a reminder of that, we have a year ahead with lots of reviews that we'll be doing for our communities. And just want to thank again everyone for being here tonight. Melissa and Kelly for supporting the planning and facilitation of this meeting. And sorry, we went a couple minutes over time. I'll put the email of the council in the chat, and I hope to see you all again soon. Thank you so much. And Happy New Year, and have a great night.
New Year.
Thanks, everyone.
Thank you, everyone. Thank you.
Thank you. Happy New Year, everyone. Have a
New
nice
Year.
evening.
Happy New Year.
Thank you.
Good night. Happy New Year.
Thank you. It was great.
Happy New Year.
Happy
Good
New
night.
Year.
Good night.
Good night.
Good night.
Bye, Sutapa. You're going to turn on your camera?
Bye. Thank you.
Yes.